His mother needs to know what happened to her son. Negligence of the ER staff and absence of cardiologist or any doctor name except a gynecologist. You're referring him to add more bills? I do believe they should lose their license. He would get routine regular health checks for the purposes of his work as a pilot. He was a veteran pilot for Gulf Air who carried out his job with great care and skill to ensure the safety of his passengers and his colleagues. It breaks my heart to say that my brother was a victim of medical negligence and manslaughter here in Bangladesh, as he thought so highly of this country and the kindness of your people. The tragic and fatal incident took place on 14th December 2022. Here is the exact timeline of the day of the incident. While he was going through immigration around 4 a.m., he collapsed and was found to be unresponsive. At around 4:20 a.m. At the airport, my brother had his first cardiac arrest. At this point, the staff and people at the airport, he received 5 minutes of CPR. His blood pressure was going down. Therefore, after, he was transported to United Hospital. Between 4:30 a.m. to 5:30 a.m., he was still in transport, carrying him to the hospital from the airport. He arrived at the emergency room of United Hospital around 5:30 a.m. and he did not receive any treatment at the emergency room of United Hospital. Between 4:30, at around 5:45 a.m., he was moved from the emergency room to the CCM unit of United Hospital, which I think it's the ICU and in the hospital. Around 6:25 a.m., he had his second cardiac arrest, and again, CPR was given for 10 minutes. After carrying out return of spontaneous ROSC and ECG showed that segment's elevation. Around 6:45, he had his third cardiac arrest. So by now, he had 3 cardiac arrests in the hospital. Around 7 a.m., immediate ECHO was carried out on my brother and cardiology opinion was taken. Around 9 a.m., the cardiologist consultation was for the first time taken, and my brother, friend who was a first officer, the co-pilot with him, who did not leave his side, became a privy of information that he will need PCI procedure, and it's necessary due to the critical state of my brother. He consented, as a second consent was required, but the Gulf Air personnel who was present there at that time knew that that procedure was very risky. Since the process was risky, the hospital was required to get Gulf Air's consent, which they failed to do so, and instead they called our family, trying to get another consent from my brother, not giving him the full information, speaking with poor English that we did not really understand what he was saying, and undermining the massive risk that this procedure would produce. During the call, where they thought for consent for PCI surgery to check for heart blocks, they said it's normal, standard procedure, downplaying the risk involved, as my brother was on ventilator and suffered 3 cardiac arrests already. Around 10:30, my brother was transferred to the cath lab for PCI intervention. Upon CAG inspection, they claim they found the left main artery was 99% blocked. Around 11:15, my brother had his fourth and final cardiac arrest during the procedure. He was given 45 minutes of CPR and temporary pacemaker was inserted, and my brother took his final breath at 12:08 p.m. He was sedated during the procedure. Upon making an inquiry at the said hospital, United Hospital, I was informed that Dr. Kaisar Nasir did the procedure, but his name was not to be found in any of the patient file provided to Gulf Air and provided to my family. The report stated that my brother had asthma, when in fact he did not have asthma. When inquired about this, they said it was mistakenly left out. I also suspect that a cardiologist was consulted over the phone. There was no cardiologist at the emergency room. Neither there was a cardiologist before 9 a.m. Only was never present in person to see my brother. My brother was buried 48 hours after his death, left here in Dhaka alone without any of us being around him to be with him for his last moments. I believe that between 4 a.m. and 12 noon, which is 8 hours, the hospital could have saved my brother, which they failed to. This is the report from the summary from the hospital. Now, what I think really happened. There's few issues here. Issue number one, my brother, negligence of the ER staff and absence of cardiologist. When someone comes in an ambulance after being told that he had a heart attack or cardiologist, within minutes, they should have prepared him for the CAG and for the intervention. Yet, my brother was moved from the emergency room to the CCM unit, to the ICU, and then for a CT scan and another few tests here and there, wasting time because there was no cardiologist. ERs are known to be a special area in a hospital that is staffed and equipped for receiving and treating of any person requiring immediate medical care. If he is in the ER, why did you need to move him without doing any procedure in the ER? As the name suggests, emergency room, they function and their expertise are in the area of responding to emergencies. You go to an emergency room and then you go to an ICU, to anywhere else. Your emergency room is your start point. It was known to the ER that my brother had suffered a cardiac arrest already, well over an hour ago, and that he was in a critical state with his blood pressure dropping lower. It was necessary and reasonably expected that the staff at the ER would exercise their professional skills and knowledge and alert at least one cardiologist so that they could give this critical patient the medical care, immediate surgery if he needed. However, the staff at the ER failed to inform any cardiologist and lied to me personally. Oh no, there was someone at the, what's the name? No name. Now, issue two, negligence of CCM staff and absence of cardiologists. I suspect it may have been the case that since it was nighttime, the cardiologist took off and entrusted the junior and inexperienced doctor/staff to cater to his case. This in itself is negligence, because there was no competent medical professional cardiologist present to advise on my brother's case 40 minutes after being shifted between rooms to the specialized heart care CCM around 6:25 a.m. My brother had his second cardiac arrest. The inexperienced doctors present at that time gave my brother a 10-minute long CPR. In less than an hour of arriving at the hospital, my brother suffered yet another heart attack, rendering him a vulnerable patient requiring urgent and immediate specialist care. The negligent and incompetent medical staff who witnessed my brother suffer a second heart attack would have but failed to contact a heart specialist surgeon then for the purpose of preparing for a stent or artery cleaning procedure. 20 minutes after his second heart attack, at 6:45, my brother suffered a third heart attack, a little over 2 hours after being in the hospital, and my brother suffered 3 cardiac arrests already. The unit specializes in cardiac issues and is one of the most popular hospitals in Dhaka as they promote themselves. But again, there was no steps taken, neither medically or ethically, to inform a cardiologist. This amounts to sheer and gross negligence on the part of the CCM staff, ER staff, and Gulf Air. The only step taken by them was giving my brother CPR for 15 minutes with ROSC. After that, my brother, who suffered 3 heart attacks already, by then was left without any medical care for 2 hours and 15 minutes till 9 a.m. when supposedly a cardiologist started their duty at the hospital for the day. Days after my brother's death, when I made an inquiry at the hospital to why no steps were taken during his long period over 2 hours, they stated that their protocol is to start CPR and thereafter opt for other measures such as angiogram, meaning they followed procedure as a staff, not by a cardiologist advice, because there was no cardiologist. They stated that since he was not in a stable condition, people do not go to emergency room if they are in stable condition, and required high doses of some particular medication. He was given 3 as opposed to 1 to keep his condition under control at that time. They could not perform angiogram, which is not true. That procedure should have been done at 7 a.m. in the emergency room. 7 a.m., not 11 a.m., 7 a.m. There were 2 staff members present at the time of the inquiry, and when asked who were attending my brother during those 2 hours, the female staff member said a junior consultant was present, and the male staff member quickly and suspiciously corrected her, and they started speaking in a language I didn't understand. It's clear from this it's okay. There is contradiction in their versions of the story. Me, myself, I heard 3 versions of the stories, and 3 of them were lies. There was no cardiologist present, and rather inexperienced junior consultant was attending to a patient that they were not qualified to handle, and there are conscious and deliberate efforts being made to manipulate the records to pile up the hospital bill since he's a pilot in Gulf Air. They only provided us with a medical test report. We received a report from the hospital with his coffin when he came back. Not one page states a cardiologist's name, or any doctor name except a gynecologist, a woman doctor, and then another ICU unit consultant. No names for cardiologists. The third issue is the incompetent and incompetent consultation by cardiologists. Firstly, at around 7 a.m., it is alleged by the hospital that an echo was done and that cardiology opinions were taken. It's unclear whether the cardiologist was present or wasn't, how he gave his opinion, and what his exact diagnosis was. This alleged cardiologist, whose identity was not disclosed to us, neither in anywhere in the report, opted for the conservative management treatment for the time being, as stated at the report, when it's clear to even a non-medical professional that a surgery or a procedure would be needed as soon as he came to the emergency room after being diagnosed with a heart attack. The doctor gave my brother a heparin sodium 5000 injection used to prevent blood clots after making the decision regarding conservative management treatment. This demonstrates that there probably was no cardiologist at the time. Secondly, when there was a change of shift of the medical professionals at 8 a.m., they wasted time carrying out CT scan and more than irrelevant medical tests on my brother, when in fact all they had to do is the PCI procedure. And these tests were not necessary, not important, not needed for a patient who experienced cardiac arrest. They simply piling up the cost for their personal gain. They claim my brother was sedated during the procedure, which has ultimately caused his death. It's unclear who decided to sedate my brother. Despite knowing he has heart problems at the hospital, who decided to sedate him? What was the dose given to him? Was there a specialist? Nothing is in the clear. A patient who arrived at the hospital after experienced cardiac arrest should have been treating with PCI in the emergency room. Now, my investigation after death. I investigated the matter by visiting the hospital. I went there very nice and very trying to just get an answer. We want closure. How can a healthy man die from 4 heart attacks, 6 hours in a hospital? How? 6 hours in a hospital, if not 8. On January 26, I sought for the medical reports at the United Hospital. They kept delaying me and they kept promising, come back, and clearly now they are altering the reports and the CCTV to show, because there was no cardiologist. And we have our investigation and we have evidence. And I actually told them, please be very truthful with us, because we did not come here without investigation. We've already investigated. After a threat of legal action on getting embassies involved, they provided me with the same paper, another medical test reports that was prepared, but we've already had that. You give us a report, a summary report that has 10 pages of a heartbeat monitor, but not a cardiologist report, not a name of a cardiologist, and you say it's confidential? How can be a cardiologist report name confidential? We've contacted expert doctors, and all these exams that was done to him, 80% of it was unnecessarily and delayed and did contribute to his death. And actually he could have been helped and revived at 7 o'clock in the emergency room. We know God chose him, but they should have done something. negligence now of, yeah. And when I went to the hospital, I already investigated the doctor. They tried to lie to me. One time they say, I call, he's there, and then they say, oh, he left the country for Umrah, and no, he will come tomorrow. He's not there. They refused me speaking to the doctor, and they let me speak to a nurse, a doctor who was attending with my brother, who lied to my face, saying that my brother came with a bag of medicine and an inhaler, and lied to me about the timing of the procedure. My dad was a pediatric surgeon. We have some medical knowledge. He said that one of the exams took 5 minutes. No, with a professional, experienced, skilled doctors, it takes 30 minutes. And I say, why are you lying? Oh, maybe no, you're lying. You say he came with a bag of inhaler and medication. Where is the report that lists the name of the medication that he came with? Where is that report? What are the name of the medicine he was on? Where is the reports from Gulf Air to prove his medical history? Where is the name of the inhaler? So if I come with an inhaler, you just take my words that I have asthma? So it took them till 11 a.m. to find out that he has 99% blocked artery, which could have been figured out at 7 a.m. Now, that's about the hospital. I would like to add one more last thing. When they finally, I became loud in the hospital because 3 days I flew 23 hours. And out of empathy, you would appreciate that someone is looking for, I say, we're here for closure. We want answer. And one of their head administrative, maybe part owner or this, looks at me and smile and giving me a patronizing look. Who are you? And of course, refused to show me the medical report. And I don't think that's, I understand a doctor is different than any normal human. When you're a doctor, my dad used to say, two people, you're either a doctor or not. Now, the negligence from Gulf Air. Gulf Air, I could read all this, but I will summarize it in two things. He's your pilot. Why there was no cardiologist in the emergency room? Why Gulf Air did not share his medical records? As soon as he arrived to the hospital, his medical record should have been there. A cardiologist should have been there, and they should have made sure that he's getting the best treatment. Just because his friend co-pilot was there, that doesn't mean that you should just leave him there to die. They did not make sure that there is a doctor, cardiologist. They did not make sure there's a cardiologist at the ICU, and I want to know, did they meet the cardiologist that supposedly did the procedure on my brother? No, they didn't, because there was no cardiologist. And finally, they called us telling us that they need consent. Why do you need consent? A pilot, when he signs a package contract, he signs his life off. What if we had our phone disconnected or something, we did not answer? So you will not operate on him because you don't have a consent? Then a doctor, her name is Fatima, who tried to cover for the hospital as well, said Gulf Air know that the procedure is very risky and they did not want to be blamed. Therefore, they called my other brother in the US asking for a second consent. And they said, it's a normal procedure. All procedure has, and they called it surgery. So when you call it surgery, where's the surgeon? You know, there's cardiologists, but there's surgeon. Where are these people? How come there is no name? You don't tell me this is property of the hospital. It's not, because we did advise the hospital. I advised them the second day he died that we are opening investigation. And for me, you know, my brother was so dedicated that even in his death, he was so dedicated not to get on that flight and die and have his heart attack at the airport, because 10 minutes, he would have flown that plane, 300 people would have died, and a big city in Bangladesh, the flight would have crashed on them. What I want, what we demand, his mother needs closure. His mother needs to know what happened to her son. We want closure. The hospital, I checked United Hospital. I checked it. People died there. They have few cases. They had a fire in an ICU. I am now looking to, I need all his documents. I need his CCTV. And as I stated, I work for the government, so any alteration, it will show. Everything will show. I've already have my investigation. I have witness statements, and I have recordings. I have everything. So it's better to come clean with all his records. That's number one. Number two, I do not believe this hospital should operate. I do believe they should lose their license, because if this is the best hospital in Dhaka, you people are in trouble if you get sick here. And thirdly, and mostly, I am looking to press criminal charges against the guy, that whoever was on that shift at staff that neglected to call a cardiologist, on the person that did not call operated or did the procedure in the emergency room, and on the doctor that operated on him at the final stage, and on the people that kept, you know, I look at the reports and it says, they've been referring him from one test to another, and it says the title, "Thank you for your kind referral." You're referring him to add more bills? So they pretty much killed him. And thank you for being here. Sorry for the long